Hey everybody, welcome to Modular Community Livestream. This is a special episode because this happens to be our 10th episode, and this also happens to be the episode we talk about what's new in MAX 24.4. We have some exciting new features to discuss. The support for new models in MAX, Llama 2, Llama 3, quantization support for models, and also a lot of Mojo features in the standard library as well as in the core language. We have plenty of cool demos too, and we'll walk through all of that. First, if you've been watching this live stream from episode 1 to episode 10, please let us know in the comments. It'll be nice to see if you've been following along. Secondly, let us know where you're joining from, and if you have questions throughout the live stream, please share them. If you have questions now, put them in the chat. This is really a Q&A live stream. The whole purpose of this live stream and this nice assemble here, we're here to answer your questions. So questions about Mojo, questions about Max, as we show the demos, or if you have questions that you have as you are working on your projects, please share them and we'll try to answer as many as we can during the live stream. So to get started, let's start with a quick round of introductions. I'll go first. I'm Shashank. I'm a developer advocate, and I'll just nominate folks on the screen and they can introduce themselves. Jack.
Hey, I'm a developer advocate as well, at Modular.
Connor.
Yeah, my name's Connor. I'm a developer on the Mojo standard library team. Those of you who contribute to the standard library in open source might have seen my name around.
And Brad.
Hi, I'm Brad, a long-time listener, first-time caller. I'm new at Modular, solutions engineer, working on the team there.
Awesome. Joe?
Hey there, welcome back. So I'm the tech lead for the Mojo standard library team, and I'm excited to be here again.
And Essa?
Hi, I'm Ehsan, dev lead at Modular.
Awesome. So some familiar faces for folks who've been watching this live stream regularly. If this is your first one, welcome. As I mentioned, this is really a Q&A live stream where we answer questions. So we have experts on the stream on Mojo and Max, and we'll be sharing all the new and cool stuff. Okay, let's get started with sort of the agenda. So we'll talk about what's new in MAX 24.4, and we'll break the live stream into two different sections. One, we'll talk about what's new in Max. Max, as you know, includes Mojo, Max serving, and MAX Engine, and support for new models in MAX Engine. So we'll talk about something new and exciting, MAX pipelines. If you're not familiar, we'll briefly walk through what it is and support for new models, specifically Llama 2 and Llama 3. And also, we have a very, very cool demo that Jack is going to show us on the which will work in the upcoming release, but we want to give you a teaser so you know what's coming down in the pipeline. And we'll switch gears to Mojo, and we'll talk about what's new in Mojo. We have a couple of demos, open source contributions that many of you have made, and we highly appreciate you doing that. Couple of changes to core language changes. We'll talk about ownership, and then Mojo community meetings. Some of you may have noticed that we have this modular community live stream, but there's also Mojo community meetings that happen on Mondays, and we'll talk about the key differences between these two and why you might be interested in attending one or the other. And I do mention Q&A and CT at the end of the show, but really this is a Q&A live stream through and through. So please ask your questions. Welcome the folks joining in, and please put your questions in the live stream. Okay, let's get started. I think the biggest highlight is we announced MAX 24.4, and we had a launch blog post. Feel free to check it out. We have the big highlights are, of course, Max is now available on macOS. So if you're a Mac user, rejoice. You can now install Max on Mac. Previously, you could only do it on Linux-based systems. Now you can install Max on Mac. What that means is that you were always able to use Mojo on Macs. Now you can use MAX Engine on Mac as well. You can run some of these examples that previously only run on Linux. So, and we'll see a couple of demos on this as well. There's also a preview of quantization support, and we'll walk through examples of that, and several improvements to Mojo. Many of it came from the community, and we have a dedicated blog post where we spoke about a lot of the community features, and we have some statistics here. 18 contributors. Many of you might be on the stream right now. 30 contributed features. So that's pretty cool, and it's very nice to see this momentum because Max was open source just a couple of releases ago, and the number of feature contributions is pretty cool in my opinion. And if you haven't downloaded Max, if you've only been a Mojo user, highly encourage you to go download Max. You also get Mojo with it, and you can run all these cool examples that we're going to show you. Okay, with that, I think we should just dive in and see our cool Llama demos. So, Brad, so tell us what's new in this release and what can people run and how they can use it and all of the good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've got one of the pages up here. And so with every release, we try to expand and enhance the examples for how to use Max and Mojo, kind of show off the full capabilities of the Max framework. And in 24.4, we added a new set of sophisticated examples that demonstrate end-to-end pipelines for common AI workloads. We're referring to these as pipelines because an AI application, or like any other like accelerated compute application, is far more than just a model. There's the processing needed for input and output, like a tokenizer, and the integration into the larger whole of your application. So these pipelines show how an AI application can be defined from end to end using Mojo and Max. And so we've got it up here. If you haven't already seen our public like Modular ML Max GitHub repository, it contains a breadth of examples for how to use Max to accelerate your AI and other compute workloads. Our new AI pipelines are contained within the...
This is the main repo, and you're talking about this directory here, examples. So there's plenty of examples here using the different APIs, Python, C, and plenty of different models, right? And you're specifically talking about Graph API here with pipelines.
Yeah, and so we have this within the Graph API, and we may do like more like enhancements to the examples repository. We're always kind of looking to add and show off ways that we can demonstrate like the end-to-end value of Max. And so within that we have these pipelines, and so within those pipelines, one of the ones I'm going to highlight here is the Llama 3 pipeline. So Llama 3 is a relatively new open source text generation model in the Llama family of open source models released by Meta. And so the team here at Modular has built a Mojo implementation of this model that uses Max and its Graph API to provide a performant yet customizable like text generation pipeline that you can run with a single command. And so I'll point out like this example highlights a lot of the capabilities we've brought in with Max 24.4. And it's like a lot of this is the result of the work of a lot of people here at Modular going into the technology and the model here. I'm just like presenting this on their behalf. But this pipeline shows off two really core aspects of the 24.4 release. Max on macOS, so you can run this all Mac on your local Mac, and the beginnings of support for quantized weights. And these combined together make it now practical for you to run a large language model in Max on your local Mac. And so in particular, like quantization, if you're not familiar with it, neural network models have proven to be extremely resilient to reductions in numerical precision, maintaining accurate behavior, even when scaling down from like 32-bit floats all the way down to 4-bit integers. And the great advantage of this is reducing weight sizes in this manner makes it practical to run these models locally, as we'll show here in a little bit. So like Llama 3 8B, for example, would normally need 32 gigabytes of RAM to load up its full weights in float 32 weight format. But that reduces down to just a little over 4 gigabytes in RAM, making it within the range of like every consumer Apple Silicon Mac that's out there. And so we default to the Q4K quantized encodings, and we support a number others, Q40, Q6K, and so forth within this model, and they're all like options within the Llama 3 model itself. And so, as Shashank is showing you here, we have a description of the model, some details on how you can operate it. There are a lot of command line options to go and run this. But the entire model itself, if you have Max installed, only takes a single line to compile and run. And so we've got all the options, we've got all the capabilities here. But the great thing about this is it's this full end-to-end pipeline, all written in Mojo, all available in Max, and all the source code you need to go and run it is contained within our example repository here. You can go dig through it, customize it, add new, build new models on top of this if you want to. We see it as a great template for showing like an end-to-end workflow. And as Jack will show, you can even integrate this into other applications very easily. That's the nature of a pipeline, is you can go and compose these together to create very powerful applications. And so if we switch over to the console, I can actually show you this in action.
Awesome. So I'll switch over to your console, but I just want to reiterate how I think this is pretty significant. This is a complete re-implementation of the open source model in pure Mojo, right? In pure Max, Max Crafts and Mojo, which means that there's no external dependencies. You're not calling any third-party stuff, right? It's pure implementation. And second thing is the quantization, I think, helps you run this on everybody's Mac. So if you're using a Mac today, I highly recommend you to go try this out today. You can use this today, right, Brad? Anyone can run this.
Absolutely. Yeah, anyone 24.4 release, you can run. What I'll show you here is what you can run off the top of the Max 24.4 release today.
Awesome. So you're sharing your screen. Let's see. Walk us through what you're going to be running.
Sure. Yeah. So what I've done is I've queued up the command we've got here, and I can actually start running because it'll do like a little bit of compilation at the beginning. But what it's doing here is in a single line, we're invoking the Mojo compiler where we have this run pipeline driver that runs a number. We have a few pipelines staged right now. It'll run more in the future, and it runs the Llama 3 pipeline. I'm capping the number of tokens at 200 just so it's like it just shows like a quick demo here. And then I'm providing a prompt. A prompt is necessary for it. So the prompt is going to start the text generation based off of that. What is happening is the Mojo model gets compiled. It stages the graph of the model for our graph compiler. That then at runtime does a full compilation of the graph and optimizes for the local platform. And you can see it goes through and it runs and it does interactive text generation. This is all running locally on my MacBook. And so peak RAM usage is somewhere about 4.5 gigabytes. It can fit on any Apple Silicon Mac. You can see how fast that text generation is. This is running purely on CPU right now. But this same model, when we have GPU support available, this same model with minimal code changes will run on the GPU. And so like that's where we're encouraging people to start looking at what we're doing right now with Max Graphs and with these models right now, because that'll provide an extremely easy on-ramp to GPUs and other accelerators using the exact same Mojo code that we have here. But you can see how fast that is, even just running just on the CPU on the local Mac. And that's enabled by the optimizations that the Max Graph compiler provides, as well as this introductory quantization support that we have within these pipelines.
Awesome. This is pretty cool. You could run this in the previous release, but you needed enough memory because typically models are in single precision or FP32, and now bringing it down to Int4 does this, and there's no dependencies, right? It's pure Max and Mojo. No calling.
Even the tokenizer is written in Mojo, and so that's pretty exciting. And you can browse through the entire code for this inner full repository to see how it works.
Yeah, and yeah, this repo has the tokenizer folder and the model folder, and there's the complete implementation. If anything, you can even learn through how this was implemented from scratch. There are a couple of questions. Let's take them as we before we transition to the next one. So really appreciate that you also have macOS support. When do you think GPU support for macOS will come out? So I would say it's forward-looking, so we can't give a date, but we're actively working on it. And I think our track record have shown we've consistently delivered on some of the things that we said we'll be doing. So I would say coming soon without sharing more, unless anyone else in the live stream wants to share more.
NVIDIA is the priority at the moment, but after NVIDIA, then we'll figure out what the next one is. So yeah, it could be Mac after that. But,
yeah, many of you, and I think Brad alluded to this. He mentioned this. The programming model with Mojo is that there'll be minimal code changes as you switch from different accelerators and stuff like that. So pretty cool. Stay tuned for it, is all I can say. And we do have nightlies now, so be on the lookout. Keep trying out nightlies, so when something lands, you'll see it first. Okay, another question is how do you know the performance will compare to Llama, for example, for Llama 3? Has anyone checked this? Anyone wants to answer that? Have we, Brad?
Yeah, so all Llama by default is using, like on macOS, is using Metal in the GPU, so it does get a bit of a boost there. But I believe that like purely on CPU, I think this is very competitive to Llama. We are benchmarking against Llama CPP, and I think with some of the latest items that we're going to be bringing into Nightly, I think we'll have something exciting to say about like the performance versus Llama CPP on CPU very soon. But the performance right now is very competitive and is pretty exciting. Even just on CPU, you see how quick the text generation is there. It is very usable. And so it is kind of magic seeing this running on the command line on macOS right now.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll mention, performance is one. The other thing is there are no dependencies, right? This is like it's not calling like another GGML like thing and some like you're not calling any other third-party stuff. So pure implementation, and you can see all of the code. It's a pure implementation that's very competitive. And when you think of deployment, when you want to take this to host a service or something, you know exactly what dependencies are. It's like there are no external dependencies calling different versions or different libraries that may potentially break including the tokenizer, right? Complete re-implementation in Mojo. I think that's a pretty huge thing. And the third thing is, of course, the ease of use. I think we made these convenience pipelines. The whole part of pipeline, as Brad mentioned, is like there are a lot of dependencies pre and post processing, right? It's not just a model. There's tokenizer, post processing stuff. So these ease of use things really help. Another question, and I think we get this question consistently every live stream. What's the plan for supporting ARM CPU on Windows? Well, actually, the question we consistently get is Mac support on Windows. You can install them using WSL. I don't know about if we support ARM CPUs on Windows. Does anyone else know? Jack?
No, not yet. Like I would say x86 on Windows would come first, and then ARM after that. But yeah, we haven't set a plan for that yet.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think the best way to thank you for letting us know. And the best way to do this is just like file an issue, and we seriously use it to prioritize our features. A couple more questions before we transition to your demo, Jack. Will there be Apache Kafka integration, enhanced capabilities for fast real-time machine learning? For example, your k-means clustering example in real time. I think I'll try to answer a broader question, which is there's MAX and MAX optimized models and Mojo. How to use it in production, right? Integrating with cloud services. We do have MAX serving, which is today sort of a Triton-based server, which is an NVIDIA product that lets you plug in custom backends, and we have a MAX backend for that. So if you already have a cloud set up on AWS, for example, like you can integrate the serving, which will take in requests. It's a microservice. You can host it as a microservice, takes in requests and gives. So you can make it part of your broader ML pipeline or SageMaker pipeline or whatnot. The other thing I'll mention is like there's works to include a MAX serving framework that's purely based on Mojo as well. So there's a lot of work going on in the cloud integration stuff. All I can say is like stay tuned. There's a bunch more cloud integration stuff coming up in upcoming releases. All right, a couple of Mojo questions. So we will answer that as we transition to Mojo. So Jack, show us your very, very, very cool demo using Llama.
Cool. Can you share my screen if it's not up there?
Yeah. 3, 2, 1. You are live.
Awesome. Yeah, so this example is going to be just a GPU example of what Brad was showing, except it's also using the serving, the Llama 3 serving that's coming in the next release. So this isn't available yet. It'll be in 24.5, but it's just a quick demo.
just to reiterate, you can't use this today, right? This is like a preview. All of you watching the
Yeah.
stream, you can't use this today. It's a preview.
Yeah, it's a preview. So
Awesome.
this one, Pixie, that I'm using, this is just a tool for creating reproducible environments. So if you're in the marketing, the community meeting we had the other day, I was doing that locally on macOS, and then this one here is running like on Linux on a remote machine. You can see here we have just this one Llama example at the moment, and this is starting up the server. So I'll quickly show you the code while that's starting up. You can see importing some stuff here. The serving API that we're building follows the OpenAI spec, so it makes it really easy to integrate with. And then you can see some setup stuff here. So you have like this text up the top, which you can see here. And then you can share code between different projects. So this one's just the menu on the sidebar. And then this starts the actual Llama 3 server. So you can see here it's just using like Mojo run and starting the serving pipeline. But you could start this in a separate container so you can communicate with it from a GUI on the browser. And then you can see all these different quantization encodings that we have support for. So this is just pointing to different URLs. And then this is setting up the menu so that you can set different options like temperature and stuff like that. And then this is all the context in terms of like messages as you're communicating with Llama 3. So once this starts, I'll show you how all that works.
So Jack, quick clarifying question there, and I think for the audience too. So you say you had import OpenAI, but this is not using OpenAI, right? This is purely
Yeah, it's just using
in Mojo and Max running on locally on a machine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, it's just using the OpenAI, like the way that they structure their messages, so that you can get streaming responses back and all that kind of stuff. Because like lots of projects use that spec. So yeah,
it's become sort of a standard.
Yeah, it's become a standard. Yeah. So this is ready now, so I can ask a question. So I'll say, generate prime numbers with Python.
That's pretty fast. Oh,
yeah.
I don't know if you're measuring the tokens per second. It looks pretty fast.
Yeah, the latency is very quick. So like as soon as you press enter, it starts generating a response like pretty much straight away. But as I ask it more questions, you'll see it slows down a little bit just because it has like a lot more context to go through for the prompt. So yeah, you can see like this is the prime numbers up to 30. And then I can ask it to do like go up to 7 instead.
So Jack, your client is on your Mac and your server is on EC2 somewhere or on?
Yeah, on EC2. So it's a remote instance. It's a Graviton CPU. So Graviton 3 CPU. And then I've just connected to it. Like VS Code has this cool feature where like if you start up a server, it'll open up a forward the ports.
Right. Port forwarding and all that. Sets up the tunnel for you. But alternatively, now with Max on Mac, you can also run this locally on your MacBook, right?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And I'll ask it another question. So I'll say, can you do a faster implementation?
Cool that it has context. This is just like a OpenAI, like ChatGPT, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you can see I have the system prompt here. So after it finishes answering this, I'll ask him what his name is, and he should respond appropriately.
And I briefly saw on your VS Code, this is running on an ARM CPU, right? Graviton?
Yep, on an ARM CPU.
So Max runs on x86 and ARM and macOS, which is on M1, which is also an ARM based.
So now I've changed the system prompt to you are movie star Billy Bob. And it should, there you go. I'm Billy Bob Thornton. I'm just telling him the movies. So just showing that the system prompt works as well. And then you also have this, like you can point it to a different server. So if you were starting up a service on a different server, which is like what you'd usually do, then you can point to the correct server address. But this demo, you'll be able to run this yourself in the next release, so that you can, like, it just starts up the server for you and everything locally. And if I change the encoding, then it will point to a different URL, so it will start downloading like the new model. So everything just works out of the box for you. You'll just have to like do that one command, and it will start up this browser for you, so you can play around with all the different Max examples.
That was pretty cool, Jack. Thanks for showing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the models, it gets this. I saw GUFF, so it gets the the GGML quantized versions, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So this has been implemented, and I also just want to reiterate what Brad said. Like, this is so much work from so many different people, like implementing all this stuff. But yeah, this is all pure Mojo GGUF. So like they did this implementation in pure Mojo, so it does all the quantization without calling into any external libraries. And then yeah, obviously like the tokenizer and all that's pure Mojo as well. So you can see it here. There's like a tick token one, and there's like a BPE. So there's a ton of stuff that's been done, and this is all just really pulling it together with this GUI demo. I get to do the fun part of playing around with it.
That was really cool. Thanks. A lot of people like it on the chat too. Super cool demo, slick, quite fast. This is fun. I think next version I'm gonna have like this docked on my Mac. So that's like my personal chat thing for mostly coding questions, right? Pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very good at like doing simple coding questions. Like if you're writing a script, like a bash script, I can never remember any of the commands. So.
Exactly, regular expressions, man. That's the main reason I use these chatbots now. Regular expressions, like you can just ask them whatever. And nice thing is now you can run this on when you're on the flight, on your long flight. You don't have an internet connection. Then
true.
Have your own personal assistant. Pretty cool. Thank you. All right. Any questions about the demo? Again, I guess reiterating, you can't run this today, but stay tuned for that nightly when it drops. And Jack will also share the demo in our repo.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Awesome. Let's see if there's a question related to this. Thank you for doing the live stream. Can I use Max locally in open source projects that I would publish? I actually don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, for sure. Like if you're building a public example using Max, then yeah, you can publish that on GitHub. Yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
We love to see that. Like if anyone wants to build something with Max, that would be amazing. And we'll promote it like on Twitter and LinkedIn and send you Mojo swag and all that good stuff.
That reminds me, there's actually Awesome Mojo, right? With a list of let me pull that up so people know. There is a GitHub repo called Awesome Mojo. It's like a whole bunch of exciting Mojo related projects. This doesn't include Mac stuff today, but I imagine eventually we'll have a big list of community based stuff too. But yeah, to reiterate what Jack said, 100%. If you build something cool, go on a Discord, share it there. We'll be happy to work with you on a blog post on that, share it on social media and stuff like that. If you're building something cool, 100% let us know.
And one of the big I'll highlight like one of the big purposes of building like the pipelines is to like let people to build upon it and create new and cool things. So like we love to see if you create new models, new pipelines, new things like that out there. We'd love to see that. And I'll mention again, everything we're building right now to a very exciting GPU release, and everything you build with Max graphs and the way that the pipelines are is going to be set up perfectly for being able to be launched on GPUs when we have that capability in the nightlies.
Awesome. All right. I think now might be a good time to segue into section Mojo, but feel free to keep asking questions on the chat. I think we'll this is a Q&A live stream, as I mentioned, so we'll answer any and every questions regardless of what we're discussing at any given moment. This is just some of the key what's new stuff that we're sharing with you, but I think we would better use the time answering your questions. Awesome. I think there's one question that I missed. I'll just take this. Does Max auto configure backend? I don't know exactly what that means. Could you, if you clarify, we could try answering that.
Yeah, I think what he means is, does it like know when you're using an NVIDIA GPU and use that backend for you? And definitely
like hardware backend thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
and this is something Mojo is really good at. It's very simple, where you can just have up the top of your script saying like, if on NVIDIA GPU do this, else do this. So yeah, it'll do that automatically for you. Like that'll be very straightforward.
There is another question. I'll take that before we transition. Does running command again will get faster startup time? So the most time-consuming part of running Max something is a compilation part. So once you compiled, the subsequent runs are very fast because your model's already compiled. So you take the Max graph and we do all the graph operator fusion and all the other optimizations, and you get like an optimized graph, and then the subsequent ones are faster. So yeah, the very first time will take a little bit of like compilation. Same thing is true when you want to host these models as a microservice, right? The very first request would be slow, and you can warm it up with like sample data, and then all the subsequent ones would be very fast.
Yeah,
All right.
I just wanted to
Yeah.
quickly add that if it's in the same process, yes, but if you are running it multiple times via command line, we will later, I'm not sure about the date, but we will include the caching and storing later.
Yeah, so there isn't a way to sort of save a serialized model now. It's in the process. So in the same process, it would be faster if you switch. Then you would have to redo the compilation, right? That's what you said. Okay. All right. Someone's asking for Max Whisper implementation. That would be awesome. I don't know if anyone's working on that. If someone in the community wants to work on that, 100%. Eventually, we'll have them. But awesome. All right, let's transition to Mojo. Keep putting in your questions. So let's quickly talk about what was new in Mojo 24.4. This was a huge release. Many of you actually contributed to this release, so thank you. We did a blog post. There's a bunch of we put all your names up at the top of the blog post because we really appreciate your contributions. I think the standard library has come a long way since we open source. There's so many cool features. Some of the big highlights in this release are ones that are making Mojo more and more Pythonic. It just makes it easier for Python developers transitioning to Mojo to just adopt all the standard Mojo containers and adopt Mojo functions. They behave more like Python now, so it's much easier to transition into Mojo. So thank you for all of that. So we did a blog post. We also released some of these examples in a repo. So we do have a repo called Devrel Extras that some folks like Jack, Ehsan, myself, when we do blog posts and stuff, we share here. This is different from the official Max repo, which is where you'll get the official model support. But whenever we do examples, we do share here. So also feel free to check these out. Some of the older ones may have breaking changes and don't work, but for example, this latest blog post that we did has a Jupyter notebook and all of these examples you can run. So some of the quick I'll walk through some of these. I'm coming this from a user point of view, but we have Joe and Connor who can answer sort of the implementation stuff, or if you have any questions about edge cases or how they work, and feel free to put them in the chat and we'll answer them. So some of the key some of the new features is list is more Pythonic. I'll quickly open up the changelog. I think that's the best place to drive this discussion. So there are many improvements with the standard library stuff and the core language stuff. Let me head to the standard library first. And again, Joe and Connor, if you want to like highlight some specific thing, please feel free to interrupt me and do that. I'm looking at this very much from a user point of view. So I feel like some of the big improvements were in the containers. Let me scroll down to the collections. Sorry. So list dictionaries have a bunch of new things that make it very easy to use, very Pythonic. Dictionaries also have performance improvements. So some of these are listed in the changelog, and I also have these examples in the blog post. We have now index method, and there is like count, and dictionary has from keys, clear, reverse. So what I try to do is try to use all of these in a simple example. So in this example, Jupyter kernel, Mojo. Let's run this. Okay. So some of these examples I use along with Python interop to do something cool. So in this example, what I do is I provide the documentation page for Mojo manual, and I want to generate a word cloud. So I have a Python function that pre-processes the data, tokenize and all that, and then I use the list for the new list features. For example, now you can do contains, you can do count, you can do what else do I have here? Couple of these new features, and you can generate plots. So I similarly dictionaries have some enhancements as well. You can use where are the couple of features here that I mentioned. I think we have contains, so you can do stuff in dictionary. The other new features include where do we? I should go back and check the changelog. Okay, we have get. So all of these features we highlight here in this blog post, and in this example, I just do like a simple Monte Carlo simulation to estimate value of pi. Other than that, we also have file IO enhancements. This is pretty cool because one of the common requests we had was temporary directory. So this is very much like Python. You can create temporary directories, you can create temp files and use these for your intermediate processing stuff. There's also base 64 package enhancement. This is actually used in our tokenizer. If we go take a look at the tick token implementation for Llama 3 that Brad just showed, we use this feature. Hold on. Sometimes the Jupyter Notebook crashes the kernel. Okay, so here I just have an example where I encode something to base64 and decode just to show that it's the same thing. There's also a bunch of new traits: appsable, powable, representable. These are all math-related traits that make writing math equations pretty simple. I think there's a big list of traits in the in the changelog. So when you write math equations, previously you have to define if you have a custom data structure, define your own apps thing. But if you make the struct conform to appsable, then you can write math equations that are more easy to read, right? So here's just an example showing how to do that. And so you have to implement the dunder methods for POW. You have to implement the dunder method for apps. And conform. I think it'll implicitly conform, but yeah, you can mention them here in the struct definition, and you can do cool things like call apps of the stuff, and you can do star to implement the POW. So I think those are the examples I had. I'll pause there. I'll let Connor and Joe maybe highlight some interesting ones, especially the community contributed ones.
Yeah, well, I think if I could just say first at a high level, I think first of all the things that Shashank just highlighted are awesome, and they're a small piece of the overall huge set of changes that went into the standard library. I think one of the things that we've been just continually blown away by, like regular conversation amongst the team, is the energy and the interest and the engagement of the community, especially around the standard library and all the changes we've been seeing. I think that for us, we thought, all right, when we first released, there was this massive explosion of interest. It was awesome, and that has not decreased at all. If anything, it just continues to go up, which is amazing. Shashank highlighted, there we go. Yeah, special thanks to all the folks who've contributed. I'm going to shout out just a couple of things that, interesting features. Folks, I apologize. I didn't actually map out exactly who contributed each feature, but suffice it to say, a good fraction of these are community contributed, and we're really grateful for that. Some cool new things that are in the standard library. Like the general theme here is making everything easier to use, making it more ergonomic, polishing some of the rough edges around, as Mojo has developed, and maybe the interest has gotten ahead of the language features. So there's a couple of new types called span and string slice that are in the standard library. Awesome for working with collections of contiguous data, whether that's just like a list or an inline array, or one of the other contiguous collections that exist. These are analogous to things that exist in other programming languages like C or C++, but this makes it a lot easier to write safe Mojo code that's also performant and doesn't have to deal with some of the unsafe pointer type stuff that folks who've been using Mojo for a while will be unfortunately all too familiar with as kind of the thing you had to do for a long time. Other new things, I think Shashank called this out too, but like List and Dict have had their APIs fleshed out quite a bit. That's an ongoing effort, but it's really awesome to see how fast that's happening. There's lots of new functionality in standard library for working with converting strings to and from integers and numeric values. There's additions to the OS module for working with temporary files and temporary directories, working with paths, creating, splitting, joining paths, creating directories, removing directories, all of this stuff that is super useful if you want to use Mojo in a scripting context or just developing some tool. That's getting better every day. Yeah, so much stuff. Oh, I didn't even mention this, but yeah, also on our list, another big thing, Mojo added support for lifetimes in the old past about a month and a half ago. We've been steadily working to extend that throughout the standard library in more and more places. I mean, the span type and the string slice type I mentioned are kind of two obvious applications of that, but we're using that much more pervasively. And anywhere there's a method that returns a value, that's now a lot more efficient. Couple of nice things. These are small, but I'll just shout them out. We've got this new deprecated parameter or like attribute that folks can put on types. So if you're a library author developing a library in Mojo, libraries change over time. If you want to mark a feature as deprecated, so your users, yep, there we go. Shank's got that pulled up. Your users can see, and know that maybe an API is going to change. This makes a big difference for library authors and kind of the maturity of the ecosystem around doing library development. Let's see. Here's another thing.
Parameters. The parameter one as well. That's new. Yeah.
Yep. Parameter 4. So this is a really nice feature of Mojo. Folks who've maybe been using it for a while will be familiar with the @unroll decorator that was removed, I think, in the last version of Mojo. There was an old, not an old, but there has also been an unroll function. We're now kind of moving towards this world of this @parameter 4 decorator, which makes compile time like loop unrolling really, really ergonomic. So loop unrolling is an optimization technique. It basically allows you to remove overhead in short, like inner loops in your code where you spend a lot of time. Sometimes this can be a little bit tedious for programmers to write. In Mojo, this is super, super easy. You just add this @parameter decorator on your for loop, and like magic, everything's inlined, super efficient. It's very easy to do. You don't have to spend a lot of time working with language features that don't compose so well. Yeah, I don't know. Those are really the highlights. There's a million things I didn't mention that are awesome. It's hard to cover everything, but I hope folks got a taste of the stuff that's been added, and yeah, it's really, really exciting.
It's incredibly hard to show all these features either in a blog post or a video or a live stream, but the changelog has everything. We have to like pick and choose what we want to highlight in demos and stuff like that. We try to pick the ones that are more visual and example driven, but some of these enhancements like parameter 4 and it's hard to show in a demo. The other big change, I think, maybe we mentioned this, the def convention is slightly different now. Previously, the definitions in Mojo, they were treated with owned conventions, and now it's is it borrowed? Right? Basically, we don't make a copy of the data when you pass. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of changes. I highly recommend you read the changelog for all the changes and for all the community stuff. Keep doing it. We love it. Thank you. And the other way to contribute, of course, is to just raising issues in the Mojo GitHub repo about stuff that you want to see. Maybe someone else who wants to implement will implement it too. So thanks again. Thanks, Connor, for walking through some of the highlights. All right, so we should probably take a couple of questions and then move on to the last few topics. Let's do the Mojo specific ones, right? I think there was one earlier on, and I said we'll wait for.
Yeah, Gabriel had a question about implicit conversions.
Yes.
Yeah. So that
actually read the question and then try to answer them.
For sure. So this is a question Gabriel asked, is the implicit conversion behavior in Mojo when there's a single argument constructor here to stay? What's going on with that, basically? So for folks who don't know, if you have a type in Mojo that has an init constructor that takes a single argument, the language implicitly currently treats that as what's called an implicit conversion. So if, for example, you have a type that, let's call it, say your type is called point, and it takes a string, it has a constructor that takes a string. Anywhere in the language that, if you have like say an argument of point type, a user can pass a string as an argument to that function, and the language will implicitly convert that string into a point type without the programmer having to call the constructor manually in their code. This is a great feature for making code kind of concise and doing these conversions without a lot of fanfare on the part of the user. But they do have this, because they're implicit, they can sometimes cause confusions in code where an action gets taken that maybe the user didn't expect. The short answer to Gabriel's question is this behavior is here to stay, in the sense this is a feature of Mojo, but we are very much hoping to make this something that is opt-in, not something that is the default. Currently, if you have a type that has this behavior, there's no way to disable it. If your type has a single argument constructor, it always gets invoked. That is going to be very likely opt-in behavior in the future. I can't provide a timeline, but this is something that's been discussed a lot internally, and I think I feel pretty confident saying, well, the behavior will become more user controllable in the future.
There's a very succinct question, which is input Mojo question. I think they're referring to the Python input. Do we have that? I don't know.
No, yeah, we get that question a lot, though. I don't know if Joe or kind of have that on their radar.
We'd love a PR. I don't think there's, unless I'm wrong, I don't think there's any reason that that doesn't exist, other than we need somebody to write it, and we'd be happy to accept
I was just
that.
setting it up, I guess. If anyone wants to implement it, that would be awesome. I think that's a pretty cool addition to Mojo. Make it more Pythonic.
Which I'd love to emphasize the point there. Like, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit in Mojo right now. Now is a great time if you're listening and you're kind of sitting on the fence, not sure if you want to contribute. There's all kinds of stuff that can have a real impact if you want to contribute it now. So it's a great time to get in.
I'll just take this one question as well, for someone asking about Awesome Mojo, if there's any cryptography stuff on there. I haven't seen any cryptography stuff there, but I also just wanted to shout out Bilson, who's in the chat, for maintaining that. He's been keeping it up to date and taking pull requests. So thank you very much. And yeah, if you raise contributions to that repo, if you make something cool, Bilson will merge it for you.
Yeah, we'll get your stuff in front of others. We'll also be happy to tweet about it and stuff like that. There's another question about how much down I suppose this is maybe a Mojo question. How much down the line are C bindings? Those would be useful for implementing standard libsys calls.
Yeah, I think for what it's worth, right now there is a facility in Mojo. There's a function you can call external call. That's how we do FFI calls, and parts of the standard library, such as the IO subsystem, are implemented using that mechanism. So it is possible today to call into C and C++. The big issue right now is that we don't have super great plumbing for the ability to link to libraries that the user decides they want to link to in Mojo. That's something hopefully we'll improve in the future, but it's just part of the system that's still getting fleshed out. I don't know if that answers Gabriel's question exactly. I mean, the capability is technically there, but there are parts of that experience that are not fully finished yet. I think also I did want to mention there was a question Gabriel asked about raising errors that I think Isan had an answer to. Unless something changed, I think it's actually the case. Yeah. So Gabriel's question was: Is raise of error, like the keyword raise of some error in Mojo, is that more expensive than returning a status code? And for context, in some languages, raising an exception can be somewhat expensive. My understanding, and perhaps this changed, is that raise in Mojo is actually implemented as a normal return at the moment. So there's no stack unwinding. There's no lib unwind involve heavily walking stack frames using debug info. It's just a return. Raise is essentially syntax sugar for a function that returns. So it's quite cheap. It's very fast. It's one of the nice things about Raise and Mojo.
Awesome. I think we covered almost all the questions. There's one that I want to highlight. Esan, you responded. Does Max support LangChain? I think broadly the broad answer is that Mojo has Python interoperability. Max also has a Python API, so you could string together, Python packages with Mojo stuff. But you can build a pipeline using all these. So you do get the performance benefits in Mojo and Max and still use some of the other parts. But eventually we would like to see these implemented in Mojo. And that's, again, a nice project idea. If anyone wants to do parts of these re-implementation in Mojo, it's going to be faster. All right. So I think those were all the questions. Let me pull up my agenda here. And Tatiana, you're here. That's good. So let's quickly talk about Mojo community meetings. I'm going to move this up because I think this would be a nice segue to what we are doing here and the other meeting that was mentioned briefly. So we are also doing Mojo community meetings, and I'll pull up the meeting overview here, and I'll let Tatiana speak to it. The difference between this live stream that we do monthly with new launches and the Mojo community meeting. So Tatiana, feel free to take it away. You're muted. Let me see if I can unmute you. All right.
Okay, so I'd like to talk a little bit about Mojo community meetings. This is a new thing. We started it about a month ago. If you scroll down like a few pages, I just want to show one more. To make one of meeting. So these are Zoom meetings between Mojo community members and Mojo engineers who work at Modular. This is pretty informal. If you are working on Mojo, if you are programming in Mojo, you have questions to developers, sometimes random questions. You would like to tell us and other people what you're working on. This is the meeting to join. It's effectively it's run by me, but it's also run by the community. If you scroll all the way up, Shoshan, please, to the potential future topics. So if you want to come to this meeting and listen, you don't have to do anything. You just subscribe to Modular community calendar and dial Zoom, and there you are. But much more interesting, please join and tell us about what you are doing, or at least tell us about what you would like to hear. You can do this by just adding a line to potential future topics. Anybody can suggest on the document, I'll accept. And you can tell us what it is that you'd like to hear about. You can also tell us what it is about that you would like to tell us about, which is much more interesting. And Shoshan, if you scroll down to July 1st meeting, for example, the next meeting will be on July 1st. This is just an example. We will have Martin Vyuk from the community tell us about Forge tools. Maxim will talk about sort module. Jeff of Modular will talk about what is coming up with generics, and then we'll do 15 minutes of Q&A. We have one question left over from the last meeting, which was last Monday. And then if you scroll again up, the meeting after that, we will have Modular folks talk about Mojo on GPUs, which is a very exciting development, which is coming up. And after that, it's all open. So again, it's community driven. This is, some topics come from us. A lot of them come from you. Please come and tell us what you're working on. And the final bit, if you scroll all the way up, the meetings are recorded and posted on YouTube. So if you miss the meeting, you can always go to our YouTube playlist and catch up with what's happened. And just check it out, see what's happening there, and then you'll know if this is something that you are interested to join. If there is
Thanks,
any
Tatiana.
questions, I'm happy to
No,
answer.
Thank you. And the meetings are recorded, as Tatiana mentioned. Watch one of these, see if this is the right one for you. If you're a developer building projects, or you heavily depend on stuff that we're building and you want to share feedback or ask questions, this is the meeting to attend. It's more technical, it's more one-on-one, it's a Zoom meeting where you have a more intimate forum with Modular engineers. The community, the live streams that we do here, which you're attending right now, tends to be a little more news and discussions oriented, where we talk about what's new. And this is also a Q&A live stream where we try to answer MAX and Mojo questions and all the other products, cloud integrations and other stuff. Whereas the Mojo community meetings is very purposeful. So if this is the you feel free to attend both, right? As Tatiana mentioned, we do have a Modular community calendar. So this calendar, we try to update these with all the events that we have. So if you subscribe to this calendar, you'll see both. So you'll also see the Modular live stream that we're doing today, but also the community meetings here. So you'll see all of it in the calendar. So feel free to subscribe these. We'll continue to use this calendar for all the Modular related events that are happening. So thank you. So again, if you have questions, please feel free to put them on chat. We'll try to answer them. And let's go back to our agenda. Thanks again, Tatiana. I think that was nice to clarify, because we did get a couple of questions asking the purpose of each of these. Awesome. All right. So how many minutes we have? We are almost at the close. So Ehsan, I'll give you the stage for a few minutes. If you talk about sort of the new blog post that you wrote, which I personally enjoyed reading. So let me pull up the our blog and Ehsan, let me know.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, you can go to the deep dive into ownership in Mojo.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, one of the core language changes in 24.4 was the change of default in def. Previously, it was owned, and now it's borrowed. And that has, I mean, previously, if I mean, users were not careful, that could imply deep copying. And now it is borrowed by default, so it invokes copy whenever you are actually doing the copy.
If you're passing a big data structure to a def, previously you would make a copy. And
okay. Yeah, or basically, if you go down this blog, I have a couple of examples. I mean, this blog is part of it. I mean, 2-series blog. The first part was building the mental model, what ownership means or is, and also go check out Chris's talk. So this is, I mean, going from very, I mean, scratch, what is stack versus heap, what even do we need ownership, lifetime, all these things. And then on the second blog post, it basically dives deep into ownership in Mojo and deduces a couple of, or 3 basic rules I would want to, I mean, highlight here. If you go down, there are a bunch of examples. So yeah, I mean, stop here, stop. So on the, if you move up, but basically, I mean, couple of cases. One is if the, yeah, copyable. If a type is only copyable, so there is no move in it, that means that, so you're only allowed to do the copy, no, I mean, transfer operator, things like that. If you go down, you will see, yes, so there's another case of being copyable and movable, and what that means if you use a transfer operator or if you don't. And if you go down, I think you are at the time, I don't want to give too much time, take too much time. And so these, I mean, 2 rules are very important. One, if the argument is owned, so using the transfer operator, it does do the move, otherwise it copies. And the last one is if you have multiple use of, I mean, copies, compiler is smart enough to change the last one into move operation if the type is copyable and movable.
Awesome. So personally, I guess for many of you who come from the dynamic programming language world, Python world, who don't really think of these things, I think it's super. I found it super valuable because I don't usually think about these things when writing Python code, but when you're ramping up on like a systems language that also supports systems programming concepts, right? Like Mojo, I found this super helpful, and there's also Mojo specific information, but also general sort of what's happening under the hood, stuff that Asan very nicely covered. So I enjoyed this. So I encourage you all to go read this blog post too if you want to learn more about. And it's based on Chris Latner's talk that we highlighted here, right? Also, watch the talk. It's a pretty cool talk where he dives deep into what Mojo does under the hood with ownership. All right. So I think if then I don't think there are any other questions. Maybe we'll take one last question before we close. I know we are at the 1 hour mark. Are there scoped lifetimes and borrow checker on the roadmap? Anyone want to take that? Joe, Connor.
I don't think we have concrete plans that we're ready to commit to for timelines on both of those things. We definitely want to build out more of our check lifetimes analysis pass and lifetimes in general, borrow checker, but I can't commit to timelines right now for that.
Awesome. Are there plans to support ARM CPU in Linux? We do support ARM CPUs on Linux today. The follow-up question, I suppose, is running Mojo in RPI and NVIDIA Jetson. So embedded systems are not something that's on the plan today. We're very much focused on systems that are available in the cloud and data center and those sorts of things. And also
people have actually got it running on different chips. So like I've seen example someone running on Android, running Mojo on Android. Yeah. It might work. Like you give it a crack and see if it works.
Yeah, no, I successfully ran it on a Jetson Nano as well. But it's sort of caveat emptor sort of a thing. Like you want to try it, right? I personally think it's fun to try it. That's why I did it. But compiling models and stuff takes a lot of time. There's not enough resources on that. All right. Okay, I think it's we should close now. Thank you all for attending. I think there's a lot of good stuff in this release. Highly encourage you to check them out. Try out the Llama stuff on the examples that Brad showed, and stay tuned for Jack's demo. We'll make it available once we have the features released into the nightly. Feel free to join the Mojo community meetings if that's the right meeting for you. The Google Docs are linked out of the YouTube videos as well that we showed. So if you go to our YouTube channel where you are watching this live stream probably, or where the recording will be available, there's a playlist for Mojo community meetings, and these meetings of course have a link to the public agenda, so you can get to this document from there. Check out all the new features in Mojo, and I would say just shout out to all of you who contributed. Thank you so much for contributing, and thank you for attending too, spending your time with us at this live stream. So with that, does anyone have any final words of wisdom to share on the people on the stream? No? All good? Okay. Jack, did you have something?
No, just go build cool stuff. Give Max a try, give Mojo a try. Like anything cool we see, we'll promote, and we'll send you swag. So give it a go.
Love that. Okay. I'll end this live stream with fireworks. Is it fireworks? Let's say fireworks show. No? Okay. Sometimes it does. Okay. Anyway. All right. Thanks again. We'll wrap up now, and we'll see you all in the next live stream or the next Mojo community meeting. So bye now.
Cheers, bye.